Hey, this is Daniel Grove. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make 3D environments potentially for free that are photorealistic. You can change the perspective, you can change the lighting, you can render them for all kinds of things. So if you're a photographer that does composite work, if you're a game designer, a concept artist, or a 3D artist, this video may be a game changer for you. So I'm using Blender 2.8, which is open source freeware, very powerful, very flexible program for 3D design, rendering, animation, all kinds of cool stuff. I use it to make a lot of my props, a lot of my backgrounds for various photos. I also do purely 3D art on the side. And I really love that due to websites like Sketchfab, there are high quality 3D scans that you can use for free, including for commercial work. So what I suggest doing is going to sketchfab.com, signing up, it's free, and go to Explore and then Downloadable. And then over here in the categories, you've got all kinds of different categories: architecture, cars and vehicles, electronics and gadgets, even weapons and military. And you'll find a lot of really high quality stuff that can be used for all kinds of things. So what I did today was I went through and found 8 different models that I really liked, and I felt that I could mash together to make some kind of interesting fantasy sci-fi kind of mix-up type of scene. So let's get started. What you want to do first, once you've downloaded the files, is unzip them, of course, and go to File, Import. Now, some of these files are FBX, a lot of them are OBJ, some of them you will also find are GLTF, which is a popular 3D format. This is an add-on. If you don't know what those are, just Google Blender add-on install and you'll learn how to install those. Very simple. So once you click on a file type, find the folder that it's in, and we've got a bunch of MTL. Those are material files. They don't matter. We're going to click on the OBJ file, and once you import, it's going to take a minute to process the mesh that you've just imported. It's also going to be connecting the material files, the image textures, and all of that stuff, which we'll look at in just a minute. So here it is, and if you look on the right in the outliner, it's actually multiple meshes. There's some for the shell, some for the jet stuff on top, some for the little computer panels on the inside. It's actually got a whole interior. Look at that, isn't that amazing? Thank you to whoever 3D scanned and prepared this file. It's incredible. So yeah, all the different pieces have 3D meshes. I personally like to join them in these situations so that I don't have a whole bunch of free-floating meshes that may get offset. That's up to you. So I'm actually going to delete this because I already have it properly imported. So delete. Let's look at the things that I've imported already. I've got this huge, beautiful cliff face. I mean, isn't that just awesome? You can zoom in pretty close and still have decent photo quality. This was likely scanned with a drone and pieced together with special software that can make 3D meshes out of a sequence of photos. Next, I've got a really nice green grassy plain with what looks like some kind of ancient home in the rock there that was dug open. This is another dig site that I really liked because of this kind of crater, almost like a circular hut burial ground in the middle. It's got some really cool collapsed rocks that would have been a walkway right there, and a tree that's cut off. I'll show you what to do with that later. Next, we've got the Discovery Shuttle. Next, we've got this, a stone head of, I think it was an Egyptian god or something. And then we've got our Apollo capsule right there. A really beautiful tree stump with some moss. Lots of good image maps there that makes it look really realistic. And a retro computer. I don't know if I'll be able to use this one or not, but I thought, hey, just for fun, to make you wonder what the heck's going on in this picture, I threw in an old computer there. So let's arrange this and make a scene, and then I'll set up a camera, I'll set up lighting, and I'll talk through the rendering process to make it look as best as possible. So I'm going to make this the farthest item in the background, and I'm just going to line them up how they are. Using R on the top view, I'm going to rotate it like this. Next, this green plane is going to be kind of the medium distant background. S for scale. Then we're going to have this circular hut dig out area. I'm going to rotate this towards the camera, which is going to be on the right side here. Not sure about the shuttle, honestly, but probably somewhere in the background. Maybe sticking out of the ground or something. If you press period, it zooms into your object that you have selected. GZ to move it up on the Z-axis. RX to rotate it on the X-axis. There. I'll probably change that, but we'll see. Hey, maybe I'll put it in this little hole here. So it looks like it crashed into the dirt. That looks awesome. Okay. Got this Egyptian head, which I'm going to shrink down to scale and put it over here just in the dirt somewhere. See if anyone even notices it. Let's put it over here on the ground, shrink it down a little bit. I don't think it's a life-size head. I could probably look up this actual statue and see how really big this thing is. It might be ginormous. I don't know. If you press R twice, it gives you kind of a more free way to rotate things. If you just press it once, it rotates it from your view that you're looking at, kind of from your perspective. So that looks decent right there. Cool. Zoom out with minus. Let's get our space capsule in place. Also over here, I highly suggest you name things very accurately. You can make an empty and put all the various meshes inside of that empty. That way you only click on the empty to move it around. You can put them in collections if you like. You can join the meshes together and, name it. But this Apollo capsule I have inside of an empty. Let's size it up. Maybe rotate it towards the camera. And give it a funny, weird angle. Actually, go this way, because the other space shuttle's already at that angle. Like it landed in an ancient burial ground. Sounds like a cool sci-fi story I need to write. At a weird angle, there we go. And let's go over here. We got a tree stump, which is also in an empty. If you expand it, you can see, oh, there's only one mesh. There was actually like 7 different meshes that I just didn't want to mess with. So I put them there. So we're going to fix this weird cutoff stump, which you see here on this burial ground mesh. They didn't scan the whole thing. They only scanned up that high. And you see over here, it's also cut off there. So let's fix that by putting this tree in its place. You can use the top view to kind of position it. You can scale it up. Make sure you cover up all of that cutoff stump. And rotate it a little bit like this. That looks pretty nice. It's kind of coming out of the ground. Let's move it down a little bit. Yeah. And I think we got our computer. See if we can hide this. A little Easter egg. Put it in the background somewhere. I'm not sure how the angle of the camera is going to be yet, so that really decides where things are going to be placed. Be fun to hide it underneath a bunch of rocks, like buried in a pile of rocks somewhere. All right. So we already have a camera made, but it's at the default angle, so I don't care about that angle. I'm going to set a custom angle with my viewport, and then I'm going to lock the camera to my viewport view. So I'm going to right-click on this first ground mesh, press period to kind of center it. I'm going to line up what I like for a view somewhere around here, and then press Control-Alt-0. See that? It locks your camera view to what you were already looking at. It's a little closer than I wanted, so I'm going to switch to normals up top. GZ, so I'm basically moving the camera, because the camera is selected. I'm moving my camera along the Z axis, which is, with normal selected, it's basically zooming in and out. That's really what it is. And it's a little bit of a tighter angle. I want it to be more wide. It's at a 50. Let's go 35. Yeah, it fits a lot more. Maybe 30. Sweet. Zoom in there. Move it down a little bit. Now I don't want too much background to be visible behind my cliff because my cliff isn't really filling up everything. So I can either zoom in my camera and make it lower, or maybe I can scale up the cliffs. Make sure it's not taking over this green patch here. Yeah, something like that. And if I want to fill in this gap here, honestly, I could use Photoshop just to drop a sky in, maybe some water here, or I can raise up. This green patch isn't barely even visible, so let's raise this up with the shuttle. And because these are separate meshes, you can really just move them however you need to. In this case, there's really no point of reference, so I think the viewer can't really tell, that the ground is totally crooked and wonky. There we go. Okay, so that looks amazing. I mean, this looks pretty sweet. Let's talk about materials and shaders. So when you import these objects, about half the time, it's going to have everything done properly and done well. So I'm going to open up my shader window here, By the way I just did that split screen was put your mouse on the very top right or left or bottom corners of any panel, or I don't know what they're called, section, and you can, the mouse changes to a crosshair. At that point, you can click and move down and make a split. If you want to go back and want to get rid of one, put your mouse in that corner and go up, and it'll override it and get rid of it. You can then expand these to however you need. So if I right click on the little Space Apollo capsule here, we see there's already a node set up. When I imported it, it only had an image map applied to color, which will do the trick. It gives it color, it gives it some detail, because that's what the photo scanner picked up. And that's nice, but it wasn't great. So I added a color ramp, copied the image color data to the roughness, and let's also add a bump to give it some bump texture. So to do that, do Shift A, click on the search, and type in bump. Put that down there, and we're going to copy color down to height, and then normal to normal. Let me zoom in a little bit. I know it's kind of a far away. There we go. So one image map is being used for everything because that's all we have. Nicer done 3D scans will have, roughness and reflection and normals and all the stuff. You don't always get that. So height, and never leave distance at 1. As you can tell, it just looks nasty because every pixel is distorting things. So let's put it at 0.1 kind of for starters. And even then it's a little bit much, maybe 0.05. You can turn the strength down as well to kind of fade things out. There we go. That'll just add to the messed up metal, kind of aged look. So that's good. Let's look at some of the other maps and I'll show you what I did. I'm just right-clicked on this kind of burial grounds one, and similar situation. We only have one image map, so I ran it into specular so that everything wasn't equally shiny and reflective. And then I did the same bump trick to give it some bump to the dirt. That helped the photorealism like big time. Before that, it was just kind of the smooth, fake-looking 3D mesh with an image on it. Once I did the bump, it just really brings it to life. And I mean, when I zoom in, like there, it looks like I'm looking at a photograph, or a camera moving around. This tree was much better done somehow, and it had multiple image maps. I'm not even using all of them, but there was an image map for color, one for roughness. There's also an image for the displacement map and the normals, which you combine in the bump node to give a really nice, natural-looking 3D depth to the object. Now, I did have to set up these images and basically this shader myself. If you don't know how to do that with PBR textures, and if you're not really sure how to do nodes, check out my previous video about PBR shaders and how to make photorealistic materials using images like this, and how to plug them in and how they all work. So let's get into the lighting and rendering and make the thing look awesome. So I've got my camera here. I do want to set up some depth of field so that the background is a little bit blurrier, which is a great tip to make things look photorealistic. So I've pressed the number 1, I get a nice side view. Let's right click on my camera over here, go down to depth of field and turn it on, and then go to viewport display and check limits. Limits shows you where the focus is. And if you see this little crosshair right here, that vertical line is the focus. You can actually click and drag it. I actually didn't know that until just now. I normally just move the distance slider here. So I'm going to put it right here so that the focus is set to my Apollo capsule. Right about there, a little farther in. Okay. And I'll set my f-stop to 2. I never know how it's going to look until I render it. Sometimes I have to do a 0.2, sometimes I do 3. It just really matters on the scale of your scene and your camera settings. So let's do that. Also, I'm going to fill in this gap I'm having with some more of this land over here. So I'm just going to do Shift D on this ground piece, move it over, and I'm going to rotate it based on Z so I have a different angle of it. Doesn't look familiar. I'm just going to put it down there. So there's just not a gap. I don't like that hole there. Mission control in the Stone Ages. Maybe hide it a little bit more under here so it's in the shadow. Okay, so I'm going to first do a render with Eevee and show you what that looks like. And then I'm going to render it with cycles, which is going to look much, much better. And then we'll perfect the lighting and we'll be done. So first, here's the Eevee render. It's not great. It's kind of hard on the eyes, very harsh, very flat. There's really no cast shadows right now. and it just doesn't look realistic. It looks like I did this in Photoshop, that I just threw a bunch of photos together, which is, not cool. I can do much better. So let's do a Cycles render, and you'll see how much better it looks, because Cycles has ray tracing, it handles shadows differently, and things will look much more realistic, and then we'll make it look even better. So here is the Cycles render. All right, here's the Cycles render. It looks better, still a little flat. We do see some cast shadows down here from the tree, from these rocks. There's a cast shadow. We've got those glowing bits that I mentioned. And we got some shadows here and on the rocks. So it's better, but it looks flat because the light is coming from the same angle almost as the camera. So basically, it's like taking a picture of someone with the flash on your camera, the pop-up flash, which never, ever looks great. Stop doing that, photographers. All right, let's move on, and let's change our light angle to make things look better. So if I hit 7 for the above angle, zoom out a lot, we have our light. So look at this. Our light angle was almost, like I said, at the same angle as the camera. You generally don't really want to do that because it's not very interesting. It doesn't make a lot of shadow or shape to things. So let's move it over to the side and rotate it like this. I don't quite want side lighting, but maybe almost a 45. Let's try this. And let's go to the light settings. Let's make the angle 45. This is basically the size of your light source, kind of. If it's very narrow, if it's a small number, you get harsh shadows. If it's a larger number, you get softer shadows. So this is kind of in the middle. And let's change our bounce amount to just 16. I like to think that that speeds up my renders, but I'm not 100% sure. All right, let's try this. I'm going to switch to slot 2 and hit F12 to render this. Then I'll be able to compare the two against each other. All right, here's the second render in Cycles, and it looks a lot better. Let me go back to the previous one in slot 1. If I press J, there it is. Flat, fake, not too great. Second one with a different light angle, softer light. Looks much, much better. A lot more drama, more interest. And honestly, I think the light is still too strong, so I would probably turn it down. And this greenery in the background is a little reflective and a little too bright, so I'd probably go into the nodes and darken that as well. Let's do that real quick. So first, let's drop our light power from 5. Let's try 3, make it kind of dim. Right-click on this green thing over here, go up, and we have a curves that I made on the color, and let's just drop it down. Right there, see? A little darker green. There we go, nice. All right, and I want this thing to be a little bit better hidden, this computer. Let's move it back here, right there, so there's not as much light coming down onto it. And let's drop our f-stop to make it a little bit blurrier for the depth of field. So let's try 1, see what that does. Also, this capsule is a little too shiny for me. I feel like it would be much more diffuse and flat. So let's brighten up this color ramp. Closer to white means less reflection. If you go all the way up, it's just kind of bleh, plasticky. But I want it to have a little bit of a copper shine so it stands out. And I feel like some of these outlines on this texture are kind of distracting. I can't really fix that right now, but it almost looks like a cartoon render when it comes out. So let's try this render. Let's try a third take. And I think I'm going to change my angle of the light like this. Make it not less from above and a little bit more flat, almost like sunset lighting. See, coming at a low angle. All right, here's the third render, and wow, that looks awesome. I just darkened the light. I made it more at a flat angle instead of an above angle. I increased the bump just a little bit on this tree, and I increased the roughness on the capsule. And I mean, that looks super cool. For just like a 10-minute, 15 minutes worth of work, I'm very happy with that. Of course, there's lots of things I could add. For one, this corner over here is not great in resolution, so I'd probably replace that with just a pile of rocks or another tree kind of closer to the camera, covering, going upwards and a little bit more blurred. Maybe add some mysterious glowing stuff inside the capsule, and maybe get rid of this computer. It's not really doing much for me. I thought it'd be a cool addition, but just a little weird. Unless maybe you like it, maybe you don't. I don't know. But yeah, I hope this video taught you a lot. I hope it inspired you, and I'm really looking forward to perfecting this. I'm also new to this, at least doing things this way, getting things from Sketchfab, throwing them together. So yeah, let's see what I can make with this when I have more time to perfect it, more time to work on materials, adding little details, and covering up some of the imperfections that come along with these types of 3D scans. As always, I would love to see what you guys make with it. So I know you can't post this on YouTube, but if you can send it to me through my social media or through email, please do so. That would be awesome. I love seeing what people make with the things that I teach them, or if I inspire them to do something, show me what you've made, please. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon. Bye.